leaves just the former Defence Minister Al Khan's as the only MP who is publicly contemplating standing. It's unclear if he would have enough support even if he chose to do so. So the likelihood is that Andy Burnham will be Prime Minister very soon after July 16th, so less than a month from now. Well, it was PMQs in the House of Commons today. Not easy to handle for Keir Starmer in his current predicament. Andy Burnham, of course, is simply a backbencher at the moment, even if he actually chose not to show up for PMQs. Is Burnham ready? What will his priorities be, and who will be his Chancellor? Well, I'm joined by a man who knows how Andy Burnham ticks. Kevin McKeever, a political strategist, former advisor to Burnham. Kevin McKeever, it's great to have you on the Times at 1. Let's start with the practicalities of transition as you see it from sort of Andy Burnham's point of view. Did he want more time than he's going to get?
Look, I think the timetable is as it was set out by the Prime Minister. It could have been longer, it could have been shorter. It is what it is. The team is now getting to work, looking at what, assuming Andy gets over the line at the parliamentary ballot, what administration will look like, who will staff it at this time available, and I'm sure the team will do that successfully.
What about the apparent bad blood that there is, and I guess it's inevitable in many ways, between Starmer and Burnham, not least over the fact Starmer, for example, still appears to be intent on presenting the Defence Investment Plan, a hugely important bit of government business, to NATO on July 7th, when Team Burnham appear to believe that that would be undermining their position, boxing them in an unacceptable way. How are they going to figure that out?
Look, I think, there's always the Prime Minister is the Prime Minister until he's not. And all decisions taken in government until then are entirely his preserve and his right.
He's not supposed to take spending decisions that tie the hands of his successor when it is clear that he is outgoing, which he is.
Well, look, there are ongoing conversations. Keir Starmer has said that he'll be cooperative. He's provided access talks to Andy and others who may challenge the leadership with the civil service. So there is cooperation. He said that he wants to hand over and ensure the success of the next phase of this Labour government. And I think we all have confidence that, unlike the Conservatives, when they have a transfer of power, this will be done calmly and in the national interest. And just look at the gilt markets today. The government borrowing is down. The price the government pays is down on the last 2.5 months. The market can see that Andy Burnham sticking to the fiscal rules, the clear, calm, planned transition is not spooking the markets, and that's what matters. And that's a clear contrast to the Conservatives.
But you're a political strategist. Surely you can see dangers in an uncontested, quote-unquote, coronation of Andy Burnham when there are so many questions about the legitimacy of that, about his mandate. If he isn't tested in any way, in a way that the public can see, before he's actually inside number 10, there is a real danger in that, isn't there?
Well, look, what I operate in is managing and managing risk. And there's also a risk to having a contest. Andy Burnham is not untested. He's been mayor of Greater Manchester.
Very different job.
It's a different job, but what it's done is taught Andy how you actually deliver on the ground in office. It's taught Andy what the public, particularly in the current national context, want and what they desire and what they respond to. And that's a decent leadership with public-private sector partnership. The right regulatory framework in Manchester has helped crowd in private investment. And Andy wants to do it on a national scale, send that massive message so that we get inward investment into the UK, but investment in a planned, calm way in the UK economy, delivering our AI infrastructure, delivering our physical infrastructure and our social infrastructure, and ensuring that every part of the UK benefits from growth and that ultimately people feel better off in a few years' time than they do today. And that's something the British people have been crying out for since 2008.
Interesting to me that you chose to point out that the bond markets are calm, that Andy Burnham has promised to stick with the current fiscal rules. How does that square with him telling the country that he's going to be a change maker, that things are going to be very different with Andy Burnham in charge?
Well, because Andy's shown great personal courage in getting where he is, both in terms of his role in Manchester, in running in Makerfield, winning, and now entering the House of Commons and hopefully Downing Street.
Sure, but if he's going to accept,
there's more to government than government borrowing, and I think we've become a bit conditioned to this. Actually, it's about radical policy, and it's not just about policy, it's about having the best range of talent on that team on the front bench to deliver on that policy. And that's what Andy Burnham's going to do. He has no problem with tall poppies. He's listening to ideas, and that will make a real change. He can do that within the current fiscal envelope.
If he wants to do real, tangible things, if he wants to invest in the country and kickstart growth, then he needs money. And if he's going to find the money, he's probably going to have to raise some taxes. So let's talk about some of the interesting and perhaps arguably radical things he could do. He could raise new taxes on wealth, on capital gains. He could change property taxes. Is he prepared to do some of those things to signal to us that he's going to be different?
Well, Andy is not going to be different for different sake. What he's doing is taking considered advice from the likes of Jim O'Neill, a former chief investment officer at Goldman Sachs, from Andy Haldane, from the Bank of England, and from others. And they all have ideas, and others do as well. This is a time when new ideas are welcome. They're not dismissed. And he does not have a problem with tall poppies. So let's have all those ideas. Let's choose the best ones, but it'll do so in a considered way. Look, we need a real system change in this country. We need to kickstart growth. We need to unleash the animal spirits of the British economy.
And when you say all of that, moving beyond the rhetoric to practical stuff, it's actually very difficult decisions, and difficult decisions that some people in the country won't like. And I'm just not clear yet whether Andy Burnham is that guy, or whether in the end he's, as some call him, a people pleaser who doesn't want to take difficult decisions.
Well, look, there's nothing much about being a people pleaser when he's come from mayor of Manchester, won a parliamentary by-election with nearly 50% of the vote, and now on course to be a Labour prime minister. There's not much people pleasing about that when it comes to, quite frankly, he's shown a streak on how to win, and he can do that for the country. Look, this is the change our country needs. It's the hope we need as well. The campaign that was won in Makerfield really showed what politicians can do. There was no negative campaigning against reform. It was all about what we can do together in Makerfield. And we can do that in the country. That will attract investment from outside. It will unleash some of the latent forces within our own society and give people hope. We shouldn't be writing Britain off. It's about time we lifted our sights and got positive about the future.
All right. Well, Kevin McKeever, political strategist and indeed a former chair of Andy Burnham's last bid for the Labour leadership some years ago. It's been a pleasure talking to you on The Times at 1. Thank you very much indeed.